Stop everything and listen closely. This is not over, not even close. The Supreme Court may have struck down large pieces of Donald Trump's tariff strategy, but Canada is still standing in the line of fire. And tonight, businesses on both sides of the border are asking one simple question: what happens next? The highest court in the United States ruled against key parts of the tariff plan that reshaped global trade during the Trump years. The justices made it clear there are limits to presidential power when it comes to taxes on foreign goods. That ruling sent shockwaves through Washington. But it did not erase the tension. It did not calm the markets. And it did not give Canada peace of mind. Because even after that ruling, analysts warn that Donald Trump is not stepping away from trade fights. He is known for using tariffs as a weapon. And Canada, America's closest trading partner, has been one of his main targets before. Steel, aluminum, dairy cars. Canada has felt the pressure, and it could feel it again. In Ottawa, trade officials are watching every move. They are reading every signal. They know that new methods could replace the old ones. Different legal paths, different tools, but the same pressure, the same risk, the same uncertainty. For workers in Michigan, for farmers in Ontario, for factory owners in Ohio, for truck drivers crossing the border every day. This is not just politics. This is paychecks. This is food on the table. This is whether businesses invest or pull back. The Supreme Court ruling slowed one strategy, but it did not end the trade war mindset. And tonight, Canada remains in Trump's trade crosshairs. To understand why this matters, look at the numbers. The United States and Canada trade hundreds of billions of dollars in goods every single year. Cars built with parts that cross the border 5, 6, even 7 times. Energy flowing south. Food moving north. This relationship is not small. It is massive. It is deeply connected. When tariffs were first imposed during the Trump administration, markets reacted fast. Prices rose. Supply chains shook. Companies scrambled to adjust. The message from Donald Trump was simple: protect American industry, bring jobs back home, use tariffs as leverage. But critics argued that tariffs also hurt American companies that rely on Canadian materials. They warned that higher costs would be passed down to consumers. And in many cases, that is exactly what happened. Now, with the Supreme Court pushing back on broad tariff powers, some hoped the uncertainty would finally ease. But trade experts are not celebrating yet. They say there are other laws, other tools, other emergency powers that could be used to impose new trade measures. Different language, same impact. Canadian trade officials are not waiting to see what happens. They are preparing quiet meetings, strategy sessions, talks with business leaders, because they know how fast things can change. And that is the word hanging over this entire story. Change. Sudden, sharp, unpredictable change. This is not just about one court ruling. It is about trust between two neighbors who share the longest undefended border in the world. For decades, the United States and Canada built a system of cooperation, agreements, rules, shared standards. The idea was stability. When tariffs hit before, that stability cracked. Canada responded with its own counter-tariffs. American whiskey, American steel, American goods caught in the middle. It became a cycle action-reaction, tension rising. The Supreme Court ruling challenged the legal base of some of those actions. The justices signaled that even a president must operate within clear limits set by Congress. That decision carries weight. It sets boundaries. But Donald Trump has never been shy about pushing boundaries. He has made it clear that trade is central to his economic vision. He believes strong measures force better deals. Supporters say it shows strength. Critics say it creates chaos. Canada hears both messages, and Canadian exporters are asking whether new measures could target key industries again. Lumber, autos, agriculture, energy, no sector feels fully safe. Businesses do not fear competition. They fear instability. They can plan for fair rules. They struggle with sudden shifts. On factory floors across North America, managers are running numbers tonight. If new tariffs come, what happens to costs? What happens to hiring? Do they expand? Or do they freeze? For small businesses, the fear is even sharper. They do not have large reserves. They cannot absorb sudden price hikes. One new tariff can mean cutting hours, delaying growth, even shutting doors. Canadian officials are speaking carefully. In public, calm words, steady tones. But behind closed doors, they are preparing for every scenario. They know that one tweet, one announcement, one executive action could shift the landscape overnight. The Supreme Court decision was a legal turning point. But politics moves differently than courts. Elections matter. Campaign promises matter. And Donald Trump has made trade a core issue before. There is little reason to believe he would step back quietly. Markets respond to signals. And right now, the signal is uncertainty. Investors want clarity, workers want security, and businesses want predictability. Instead, they see a cloud still hanging over one of the most important trade relationships in the world. There's also a global message here. Other countries are watching closely. If the United States shifts trade policy again, it does not just affect Canada. It affects supply chains around the globe. It affects currency markets. It affects confidence. The Supreme Court stepped in and drew a line. It said there are legal limits to sweeping tariff actions. That matters for the rule of law. It matters for checks and balances. But it does not erase political will. If new trade tools are found, they could be narrower, more targeted, but still powerful. And Canada, given its deep trade ties with the United States, remains especially exposed. In Ottawa, officials are mapping out responses, retaliation plans, negotiation strategies, diplomatic outreach. They hope those plans never leave the folder. For ordinary people, the story feels frustrating. Just when stability seemed possible, the question marks return. Families remember higher prices. Companies remember stalled contracts. Workers remember uncertain shifts. This is not a headline about the past. It is about what could happen next. The court has spoken, but the trade battle lines are not erased. And Canada, even after the ruling, still stands within reach of America's next move. Now here is where the tension rises again. Supporters of Donald Trump argue that tariffs are not punishment. They say tariffs are protection. They say America must defend its workers. They say tough trade pressure forces better deals. That message still resonates with millions of voters. But critics warn of something else. They warn that even targeted tariffs can ripple through the economy. A tariff on steel does not just hit steel producers. It hits car makers. It hits construction companies. It hits energy projects. Costs move fast. And when costs move, prices follow. The Supreme Court ruling limited broad executive power. The justices sent a signal that sweeping wide tariffs without clear authority would not stand. That decision matters. It reinforces the idea that there are guardrails. Yet trade lawyers are already discussing alternative paths, section laws, national security claims, narrower actions aimed at specific sectors. The language may change, the scope may shrink, but the effect could still sting. Canadian trade officials understand this game well. They have lived through it before. They remember how quickly aluminum and steel were hit. They remember how retaliation lists were drawn up overnight. And they remember the strain on farmers and manufacturers. So tonight, the mood is not relief, it is caution. The border between the United States and Canada is more than a line on a map. It is a lifeline. Every day, billions of dollars in goods cross peacefully. Trucks roll through checkpoints. Trains carry materials. Pipelines move energy. When tariffs enter that flow, friction builds. Paperwork increases. Costs climb. Deals slow down. And when deals slow down, jobs feel it. Canadian officials are asking hard questions. If new tariffs come, which sectors are most exposed? If retaliation is required, which American industries will feel pressure? They are not eager for confrontation, but they are prepared for it. American businesses are asking similar questions. They depend on Canadian raw materials. They rely on parts that come from across the border. A tariff is not just a tax on Canada. It can become a tax on American supply chains. And this is where frustration grows. Workers on both sides did not ask for volatility. They want steady pay. They want predictable markets. They want leaders to solve problems, not create new ones. The Supreme Court may have changed the legal map, but the political road ahead still looks uncertain. There's also a deeper issue at play. Trade is not just about goods. It is about trust. When countries trust each other, businesses invest boldly. They build factories, they hire workers, they expand. When trust weakens, caution replaces confidence. Canada has long been seen as one of America's most reliable partners. Shared values, shared security, shared economic interests. That partnership has weathered storms before, but repeated tariff battles leave scars. Donald Trump built his political brand on strong trade action. He argued that past agreements were unfair. He promised to fight. That message carried him to the White House once. It could shape policy again. The Supreme Court decision does not erase that political reality. It simply narrows certain tools, and the broader philosophy remains alive. And for global markets, perception matters as much as policy. If investors believe trade tension could return, they hold back. If companies fear sudden rules, they delay expansion. Uncertainty is expensive. It drains momentum. It slows growth. In Ottawa, officials are reaching out quietly to allies. Europe is watching. Asia is watching. Global trade groups are watching. Because when the United States moves, the world reacts. If new tariff mechanisms are introduced, they could test global trade rules again. They could invite disputes at international trade bodies. They could trigger countermeasures. No one wants another spiral, but no one can rule it out. For families in Detroit and Toronto, this debate feels distant until it hits their wallet. A rise in car prices, a jump in grocery costs, a slowdown in hiring, then it becomes real. And that is why this story matters now, not later. The Supreme Court ruling created headlines, but the aftershock may take months to unfold. Political speeches will come, campaign promises will echo, and trade may once again stand at the center of the storm. So here is where things stand tonight. The Supreme Court drew a line against broad tariff authority. That is a major legal development. It reinforces limits. It signals balance between branches of government, but it does not close the chapter on trade conflict. Canada remains exposed because of how deeply its economy is tied to the United States. That closeness is strength in calm times. It becomes vulnerability in tense times. Donald Trump's trade philosophy has not disappeared. Supporters still see tariffs as leverage. Critics still see risk. Canadian trade officials are not panicking. They are preparing. American businesses are not celebrating. They are calculating. And workers, from auto plants to farms, are watching closely. This story is about more than courtrooms. It is about stability. It is about predictability. It is about whether two close neighbors can move forward without reopening economic wounds. The court has spoken, but the future of North American trade remains uncertain. And tonight, one truth stands clear. Canada may have won a moment of legal relief, but it is still in the crosshairs.